Hey everyone, welcome to the Catholic Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Fisher. Today's guest is Isaac Padilla from Catholic Warrior Fitness. Before we dive in, question of the week. What's one thing in your creative process or in your business that you're struggling with that you'd actually really like some help with from somebody else, someone from an expert? Let me know on Twitter, Mitch Fisher, Instagram, the Catholicpreneur. Would love to hear what are some of the things that you'd like some help with. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in Isaac here to talk a little bit about himself. Isaac, how's it going?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. Love what you're doing on Instagram. Can you just give a little bit about yourself, about Catholic Warrior Fitness?
Yeah, for sure. I'll try to keep it brief, okay? So first and foremost, I'm a Catholic men's fitness coach. That's what I do. It's probably how you found me. Um, a little bit about how that came to be. Um, Initially, it wasn't the plan. Actually, I was supposed to be a famous musician. That was the original goal, right? That didn't quite work out how God wanted it to be. I don't think so. I moved here to California when I was 19, chased a music career, and I got into a little bit of trouble. I wasn't really Catholic at that time, but I did end up finding my wife out here, and I got her pregnant at the time when I was like 19 or 20, and we didn't really know what else to do. So I moved back home to New Mexico because I didn't really have any support out here. And, I definitely wanted to make sure that we had some sort of support system and raise this baby, even though she was kind of a stranger to me. And we got home to New Mexico, and unfortunately, we ended up losing our baby. And that was ultimately the catalyst of my conversion. Um, that was a very painful moment in my life that really drew me close to God. And, I was reverted back to the Catholic faith after that. And then from that time period, this was 2020, like start of 2020 to now, has been just an insane period of growth in my life as a man. And this is really, in my opinion, just appointed from God, this path that I've taken, just for my own experience of pain, and the whole goal here is to gift this to other Catholic men because I know they need it because I went through it. So that's kind of the origin story of, how this came to be. And yeah, good question to
That's
start.
beautiful. Yeah,
I mean,
thank you for sharing your testimony. That's very very beautiful. What's
appreciate it.
so dive into like your Catholic Warrior Fitness like content, your coaching. How did
Yeah,
that come to be from that? So like, what was it like starting that to now? What's that process been like?
for sure. So back during my reversion, those early days, 2020, I actually had a coach for the first time in my life. And I'm a pretty prideful guy. Unfortunately, I still got to work on that. And so it was hard for me to be in a position to where I even had a coach in the first place. But shout out to my guy's name is Shane Patrick, fantastic dude. Um, he basically he got me in the best shape that I have ever been in my life. He got me entirely shredded, dude. Like unbelievable. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, how is this possible in a very short amount of time? I'm talking like literally 90 days, about 3 months or so that we were
Wow.
working together. Yeah. And so I immediately understood the value in coaching because I went my whole life trying to accomplish something like that. And this guy condensed it to 3 months of time simply just from me understanding a different way of thinking about it. I gained a lot of knowledge from him. But as I was going through that reversion to the faith, I was super on fire initially for the faith. And it kind of just clicked at that time like, you know what? I applied all those concepts that he taught me to my faith in my study in my faith. And so the seed was there early. I was like, you know what? Like I kind of want to do this. Like the coaching thing. I could see myself kind of doing it. But again, at the time I was chasing music, so that was the big goal. So I kind of just put it in the back of my mind, right? And so that was 4 years ago. And I continued to chase music from 2020 all the way up to last year, probably like last year. I was off and on about it. And finally I came to this conclusion. It was actually a moment that I had in my car. a lot of internal struggle with God because, you know, I always felt like I was made to be a musician, really good. And so I had this like frustration with God, like, why did you make me good at this? And then there's this like internal struggle in my heart, right? And at the same time, I have this calling to guide and lead men, which is what I do now, you know. Um, and so I finally just kind of I just gave that up to him. It was hard for me to do that because, my whole life as a musician, I was 11 years old when I started making music. Like this is my whole identity. So I surrendered that to him and I asked him to just give me the strength and to guide me if this is what you want me to do. So after that came the birth of Catholic Warrior Fitness. I posted a video on Instagram on a whole new account, the Catholic Warrior Fitness account. I made it brand new back in the summertime. And I posted a reel, and the reel was about me deciding to leave the commercial gym because of my struggle with lust. Okay. This is how it happened. And I was working out in the park and I just recorded that and I did like a voiceover and the video blew up. It has like 600,000 views. And so right after that, I had that conversation with God. This happens. And it was almost like this clear sign of, all right, this is what I got to get into. So then I started really focusing on the content for Catholic Warrior Fitness. And thank God, dude, it's growing every single day, like insane. And
Hmm.
I just, yeah, started putting things together. I really think it's led by God, the most of it. I just give it to Him and I'm trying to do the best work that I can with His
That's
guidance.
that's amazing. I'm pretty sure that's actually the video. That's how I found you. Was that video? Like it blew up big time, which was cool.
You remember
Um,
that one? Yeah.
I do, yeah. And I've noticed like you kind of have some of your content's like different, almost like series, like themed content. Go into like so that content blew up. Go into how did you start to be like, all right, what do I do next? Like what's the next thing I create?
Yeah.
What's my message? Like how did you figure that out?
Sure. Well, one thing I realized that clicked early on when I posted that is it was super vulnerable, that video. And I was always, like a lot of people on social media, I was hesitant to be vulnerable because I had this old Instagram that I used for my music. And in that Instagram, I had it for 6 or 7 years. And so all the people there had like 2,000 followers. I know everybody that's in that community. And I wanted a fresh break and a fresh start. I wanted a whole different world. And so when I made Catholic Warrior Fitness, the account, um, I made it from scratch, like brand new in 2023, like I think February or March of 2023. And so when I posted that video and it blew up, it clicked. I was like, okay, I was very, very vulnerable here with something that most people wouldn't share, right? Talking specifically about my sexual sin and my problem with lust, right? But I understood very clearly that a lot of men are in the same boat. And if you look at the comments in that video, half of it are like, oh, what a pussy. This is just my language, but like they're making fun of me. And then the
Hmm.
other half are like, oh, I commend this guy because he, removed himself from that situation and he's chasing something. So I understood that there was a lot of men out there that needed to hear stuff like this. And really, I leaned into just being as raw as I possibly can through the Instagram, which is the best way to do it. And as far as the content, it's honestly just my personal experience in the past 4 years because I've been through a lot and I have a lot to share. So that's kind of how I formulate it. Now it's a little bit different, but I'm trying to target the guy, specifically this guy, the guy that's rough around the edges, like me. That's what I like to say, who has a hardened heart, per se, or maybe a Catholic who has fallen away from the faith, or a guy who doesn't really know his faith that well, or maybe thinks that it's kind of corny. Like, that's how I grew up. You know what I mean? I didn't grow up with a solid Catholic foundation and background. I came into the church almost like a convert. So when I make my content, I want to reach that guy that's like I said, rough around the edges. That's the whole goal by just speaking about how I went through it, because this is my process. You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
makes sense?
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
dude.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's so cool hear how you clearly have like defined like what am I doing? Like why am I doing this? Who am I creating this for? Like I think that's so important.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean you're nailing it. Your content's amazing. So keep up the good work there. What's uh what's something that's some takeaway you've had as far as translating content creation to the business side of coaching?
yeah,
Like how's that looked for you? Like what have you learned trying to, be an entrepreneur in that sense?
for sure. I think what happens by being that vulnerable in the content is people understand that it's really me and it's not a gimmick and it's not like I'm trying to pull the wool over your eyes. It's like, this is really who I am. This is how I live my life. This is what I've been through. And I think that level of authenticity just speaks through to people to where when we get down to I'm admitting a new brother inside of my brotherhood, which is the business, right? To where I have a level of trust from them from the content already. So I see that translation is interesting. It's important. And how I go about it on social media is for that reason, because I don't want a guy to reach out to me for help, for training, if he's on the fence about me or he doesn't really know me. Like the whole goal of the content is I want you to see it. That's why on my story, I'm like, I post every day when I'm up at freaking 4 in the morning and getting after it every day. Like I want them to see and understand that this is who I really am. So it helps build a lot of rapport. Um, but ultimately, the goal is to really give everything away in the content. That's the real secret. Like, if you go through my content, my goal for any man is to be able to extrapolate everything he needs from the content without ever having to buy anything from me, like a program. I want him to just be able to see my page, look at it, piece it together, and he can do it. That's the whole goal. That's my gift to these guys. And honestly, where I got that concept from is a guy named Wes Watson. Wes Watson is another fitness coach who completely changed my life. Before I reverted and before I was Catholic, he was the first guy that I saw online that I was super inspired and motivated by. But when I was like 18 or 19, I was such a loser. And every piece of content that he made just struck me in the damn heart, dude. It was crazy. And honestly, from that point of time till now, I still watch Wes to this day. I have so much trust built in Wes from his content because of that reason, because he's willing to be extremely honest and extremely vulnerable. And I know that it's not a game for this guy. So that's the real goal. And sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there, but
No,
you can
that's
see.
beautiful. I think that's such
Yeah,
so important to know. It's just like building that connection through content. Like it's totally possible. It's totally possible to be vulnerable. It's possible to build a relationship through content because, like you said, if you're being authentic, if you're being true to yourself, people will find you who relate to you. What's like very practical here, I guess. So someone who's starting their own business, whatever that might be, what's like some very practical like tools that you have um, to create good content and to do what you do?
yeah. I think the most practical approach is to just tell your story. Um, the overall goal is to build a personal brand because a personal brand is extremely strong, but it only comes from you. That's like, you know, the approach is, all right, are you willing to legitimately share who you are, your story? We all have one. And I always tell people, even like guys, some of the guys that I talk to before I enter them into the program, some of their stories are so insane that I'm like, dude, like people need to hear this from you. That's the power in sharing your story as humans because we share pain, every single one of us. That's why so many people can relate to these messages because it's literally all my pain that I've experienced that I'm expressing outwardly. And so when people see that in a video, they're like immediately related to their pain. So my best advice to somebody in that position starting a business is to be honest about your story and where you come from and who you are, um, and never to feel any shame. Like there's some people who I talk to that are like, man, well, how do you have the courage to share that on social media, like from all those people? Well, once you understand that that's a superpower, then you'll get it. It'll click. That's where you got to start for sure.
what's your daily routine look like? So, as an entrepreneur, as a man, prayer life, work, personal life, family life, like what
Yeah.
does your day to day look like?
So in the morning, I wake up at 4 a.m. Um, I have a three-step process that I teach all my guys where immediately I read scripture in the morning, specifically the daily readings of the church. After that, I will do some journaling. So I literally journal for 5 minutes. I call it my 5 minute rule. I have me and every one of my guys does this. I set a timer for 5 minutes. I don't go past it. And I just, I'm completely honest with myself when I journal. I try to be as raw and as vulnerable as possible so I can talk to myself and I know what's going on. That's step two of my day. Step three, I pray my rosary in the morning. Um, After my rosary, I get after it. I'm training for a marathon right now, so usually it's weight training. It's a lot of running these days. I got a 3 miler here in a bit. It's kind of a light day. So I'm either lifting or running or both in the morning. That's before my day begins. Okay, so what I call this for my guys is I set my aim correctly so that all the hard stuff, quote unquote, I've already done it by freaking 7:30 a.m. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's done with, right? So come back upstairs. My wife's here with our son. She's taking care of our boy and get ready for my day. Usually I'll have calls, like calls for the 90-day night program, admissions. It's an admission only thing. So I have a screening call with these guys just to make sure that we're going to be a good fit for each other. And, I'll have several of those scheduled throughout the day. Um, Depending on how full that schedule is, in between those calls, I'll focus on content creation. Um, I'll blast out some things to the group chat, like it's a busy day full of just stuff, just handling stuff as best that I can, right? Messages, Instagram, I'm talking to people, doing a podcast like this, 7:30 in the morning or 7 in the morning. Um, that's my typical day. And I should say this too. Now that I've completely quit my job and I have this time as an entrepreneur, another big part that I'm going to implement is really getting to mass more often throughout the week. I might be a daily masser, like an old lady throughout the week now, like that I have the time.
I love
Uh,
that. Yeah.
yeah, man. And Sunday's my rest. I always say this too, as Catholics, we need to rest on Sunday. Um,
Hmm.
don't take advantage of that rest, of course, like legitimately rest. Don't drink 10 beers with your buddies and eat tacos. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah, dude, that's my day to day pretty much.
That's very cool. I love that concept. That's something I'm trying to focus on too, is like New Year's resolutions wise. I've been like, I really want to get all the hard stuff done by 7:30. So like it requires that discipline to get up, obviously. How do you how have you like found that discipline to get into this routine that you have that allows you to be successful? What are some things that you have found helpful?
Yeah. Well, it's all habits. So at first it's going to be very hard, like any other hard and difficult habit that you're going to build. It's going to take time and it's going to be extremely uncomfortable at first. I literally went from smoking 5 blunts a day and waking up at 2 and 3 p.m. and watching porn and masturbating all day to doing this in the course of like it took me like 3 months initially when I first did this with my first coach. It was hard. Hardest part for me was the wake up time. I hated waking up early, right? I mean, I was so used to waking up late and doing whatever I wanted. But ultimately, what I understood after I built the habits up is it was worth going through that time period of initial pain and suck. It's like a it's like a drug addict detoxing. That's how it really is. That's what I tell my guys. It's like, you know, the discipline that you want, that you desire, it's possible, but it's going to require a lot of effort and sacrifice on your end. But ultimately, the way to keep it, because some guys can do it for a little bit, just off of the oh, new year, new me, or whatever it is, inspiration. Um, that's not going to last too long. The way that you have to keep it, or that you're able to keep it, is you have to truly build the habit up. And so, yeah, the only way is the only way, dude, is to just go through it. There's no other way. You just got to start doing it and be intentional about it. What I would say is this too. This is another good piece of advice. Um, a very strong concept that will help in doing that I teach to my guys is having what's called an anchor. Okay, I make every one of them create an anchor before I even admit them into the brotherhood. This is what I mean by anchor. Okay, so for example, Mitch, I'll ask you, who's the most important person in your life besides God?
My wife, Taylor.
Your wife. Okay. So I want you to think about this, Mitch. Every time that you folded on a diet or a goal or whatever you had, did you ever think about Taylor?
Not always, no.
Not once. Did you ever think about anybody else?
No, just myself, my failure.
That's a crazy concept, right? So what I do when I teach habits is I attach your anchor in your mind to the point where you want to negotiate with yourself. Because what's going to happen is you're going to interrupt the pattern that you have. All this stuff is bad habits. So let's say you crack on your diet, you go eat a burger, and you know you should be dieting. Okay. Instead of, I'm going to do it because I'm so hungry and I don't want to diet. It's all about me, Mitch. I'll make you say to yourself, I'm doing this for Taylor in the middle of that. That's how you, that is how you interrupt hard habits that you have. I mean, bad habits that you have, and how you build new ones is you have to consciously interject and break that loop and then build on top of that. Selflessness is the key for building a hard habit. That's a good piece of advice for guys trying to do it that are like, oh, how do I do this? Don't make it about you. Make it about something deeper than you that you can attach to that process, and it'll help you.
Thank you. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm
man.
I'm taking that. I'm running with that. I appreciate that advice. I think that's amazing. So,
Yeah, dude.
what's what was it like when you recently quit your job to do this full time, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
What was that like? I mean, obviously there's probably some fear, some excitement. How
Yeah,
did you know it was the time, and what was that process like?
that's a good question. I was very, very fearful initially. Um, it came up very swiftly. It wasn't a part of my mental plan initially. I wanted to hang on as long as I possibly could, right? Because it's comfortable. And
Hmm.
so how it came about was I actually had a conversation with my coworker, and it's funny how God does this, but He will speak through other people to you. And there's sometimes where it's very distinct, and I'm aware of it, almost as like I'm hearing His voice through him. It's only happened to me a few times in my life, but that was one of those times. And so basically, he asked me to give him a ride to. He was getting his car fixed. I was taking him to a shop after work, and I did. His name is Francisco, good guy. Um, and he's the only one who really knew about my business in there at work, and we're kind of close. And so we get in the car, we're driving, it's quiet, and he's like, "Why are you still here?" And I'm like, "Dude, just that question, it just, I don't even know if he meant it. I don't think he meant it that way. I don't think it was even that deep for him. But it was just like an arrow just right through my heart. And I was like, dude, internally, I just went down this rabbit. I was stressing, dude. Like that whole ride home, because I dropped him off. We talked a little bit. He didn't know that he riled me up inside like that much. Just that one stupid question. And I thought about it, dude, all night. I couldn't get out of my head. I was like, I really just went down the rabbit hole. And then so I started to pray on that a ton of time. I think I went to adoration as well. I took it to adoration, and I really just was like, all right. I felt like one, I needed to tell my boss, because they've been so great to me. And I was intentional about not disrespecting their time. Like I would take a call, a business call during my lunch in my car, and I would just bust my butt for the other 12 hours that I was with them, and I came clean to my boss. I was so convicted that I was like, you know what? I need to tell him what's going on for whatever reason. So I went in there and I told my boss, I was like, look, this is what's going on. I started a business. It's doing really well. And I don't want to disrespect you guys at your time. And I also don't want to ride the fence. And I just had that, I just had that feeling in my heart, like I need to tell him, right? And so I told him that and went way different than I anticipated it to be. He really respected it, and he fully supported me. And he was like, you know what? And my boss is not Catholic, but he's like, this is something between you and God, is what he told me. And I was like,
Wow.
another part of he's like, dude, I can't even interfere in this. He's like, this is between you and God. So go figure it out. And I took another night to think about it. And on the way home, I called the owner of the company, okay, on my way home after that conversation. And I told him the same thing. And he was like, first and foremost, Isaac, he's like, I want to tell you this. You're going to make it. I'll tell you why. You have the balls to call the owner of your company and tell me to my face your plan and that you have a business, you're running it. And he's like, and little do you know, it's like, I bet you were nervous giving me a call, but little do you know that one of my best friends is one of the top coaches in the coaching industry that you're in. So it was full support, is what I'm trying to say. It was like it went
Wow.
way, way different than I anticipated it to be. Um, and so I did it the right way. The next morning I walked in, I officially resigned with these guys and, got their blessing. Two owners and the boss in the big room in the freaking, skyrise LA building of this fancy smanchy job that I had, and shook hands. And it's amazing how it works, man. It's amazing that, I just had that solidification in my heart. Like I need to back up what I say, which is I can't ride the fence and be comfortable. I got to jump and I got to do it and fully commit. And it's beautiful how God will test you and then he'll give you that reward after
Mm,
after the
yeah,
test. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. Love
it's
that. No,
crazy.
that's such a cool story. That's such beautiful insight to see how you discerned all that, how that kind of unfolded.
Hmm.
Um, what's the number one thing you tell guys who are looking for help from you?
Yeah.
Um, and maybe it's like that piece of advice you give, maybe on that admissions call or whatever it is. What's that like one thing? Guys wants to change his life around, wants to get fit, wants to increase prayer. Like, do you have like one or two things that you usually tell them?
Yeah. The biggest thing that I tell them is that they, like I told you earlier, if they really want lasting change, it cannot be about them anymore. That's one part of it. And the second part of it is they have to be willing to kill that part of them for good. A great priest once told me, right, when I was consistently confessing my sin, watching porn, masturbating, just revolving door, he asked me, he said, do you really want to change? And I sat there and I thought about it like, hmm, I never really thought that deeply about it. He was like, do you still find a certain pleasure in doing this still? Even if you say you want to change, do you really want to change? I'm like, that's a great question. I had to really, really think about that because there was part of me that was still attached to a little bit of it. If you have any little piece of it attached to it, it's not going to fully work. You have to be willing to fully kill it all and leave it all behind, all in. So that's my biggest piece of advice is one, like I said, you have to be willing to kill the self fully. And two, it cannot be about solo you. It has to be bigger than you. That's the only way it's going to work. Two pieces. Yeah.
Definitely. No, love that. What's a project you're working on now, or that you're looking forward to this year that might be new for you, for your content, for your offerings, and anything that's coming up?
Yeah. I think this year the big focus is collaborations. I really want to make a lot of content with a lot of great people. I have a few people in mind that are kind of in the Catholic world, but I have this idea of just uniting these strong Catholic men and figures so that we can start to really push. I can see in my content and in my world like the impact that it's making. And I think this is a beautiful thing for our church, and that's really what my focus is on for this year as a business, right?
Hmm.
Um, as far as like a personal goal, in fact, my biggest goal is to really, really understand my faith well, like extremely well. That's after some personal review, that's probably been my biggest weak point, which is interesting, but it is true. It's like I should know more than I do. I know the basics, a little bit more than the basics, of course, but it's something that's been on my heart. I really need to understand well for this reason. Like, for example, if I end up talking on a podcast or something, if just on the street, I need to be able to truly and fully be that guy. That's what I want to be. I can't just have it in these other areas and lacking in this one. So those are the overall goals and visions for 2024. Yep.
Very good. What's it like being a dad, a father, and running this business now?
Dude, if you want to put some fire on your back, have a kid. You have kids, right? You're a dad. You're a
Yeah.
dad. So you know what's up. Um, it's pushed me to a level that I've never been to before. And it's also the most fulfilled that I've ever been in my life. It's fascinating when you have a kid. Like the lessons are deeper. Everything is, I take everything to a deeper level because of him. And it's amazing, dude. I mean, I used to talk to dads all the time, like, oh, how is it? Oh, what's it like? And you get the standard dad answer of, your life will never be the same. It's so true. What's funny is there's no other way to put it. Now I understand these guys. It's like
Mm-hmm.
when I held him for the first time, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. It clicks in that moment. And it's funny because when you explain that to another man who's going to be a father later, that's like all you got. You're like, your life's gonna change, brother. It's like that's all I got for it. So, but it's been awesome. Yeah,
That's so good to hear. I couldn't agree more. I feel the exact same way. It's been so life giving and fulfilling as well. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
it's just so fun. Where can people find you, your content? Just if they want to get in touch with you, where should they go?
yeah. So I would say just go directly to Instagram, Catholic Warrior Fitness. Pretty easy to remember. If you look at this blue little emblem, it's pretty easy to remember that too. And just shoot me a DM. Just talk to me directly. A lot of guys are amazed when I send them a message or something, but I'm a real guy. I talk to people all day, and I would love to have a conversation with any one of you. So appreciate that, Mitch.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Very cool. I'll put that in the show notes as well. So links below. Isaac, thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your journey, sharing a lot of nuggets of wisdom. I really appreciate it.
absolutely, Mitch. Thank you for having me, brother.
All
Hey, we're
right.
gonna
God
get
bless
after it,
it.
dude. We're gonna do some push-ups together, me and you. I'm just kidding.
All right. Hey. I'm trying to get that's one of my focuses for 2024. I'm trying to stay disciplined on workouts. I want to get better at push-ups. One of my goals actually is to bench 225 this year. So I know that's like
Beautiful.
a big goal, but it's
Yep,
definitely somewhere I want to be. So
that's beautiful. Let's get
very
after it,
good. Well,
bro.
best of luck. Best of luck for you in your business. And yeah, God bless.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. God bless you too.